Now the next ayah, لا يؤاخذكم الله. This is the casual situation. Allah will not grab you. Al-mu'akhadha in Arabic is when somebody grabs you over a mistake you made. لا يؤاخذكم الله باللغو في أيمانكم. Allah will not grab you because of the shooting your mouth, running your mouth that you did when you took an oath. باللغو في أيمانكم. Lahu means kalam farigh, right? ليس له هدف. There's speech that has no goal. You're just kind of talking, running your mouth, and you kind of threw in there, wallahi. Right? A couple of friends are hanging out, one guy's elbowing the other, go, wallahi man, I'm going to kill you. Next day he shows up with a dagger, I'm sorry, I swear to Allah, I have to maintain the oath. No. You don't have to abide by that oath, it's okay. You just said it casually. Allah understands, Allah knows. And Allah knows especially for Arab society, because for thousands of years, what was so casual for them? Wallahi, it was so casual for them. So that's why Allah Azza wa Jal did not make it a big deal for them. He said, okay, if you just said it just like that, you didn't mean it. Because the Sahaba, when they heard the first ayah, like, I swear, and then I have to abide by my oath, they started worrying about their speech. Now when something is stuck on your tongue, and it just comes out, without you even thinking about it, right? Then you would really necessarily fall into that trap more than once. So Allah relieved them of this position, and He said, لا يؤاخذكم الله باللغو في أيمانكم. Now the other thing that I've seen among youth is interesting. I never thought I'd see this actually, but I've seen it a couple of times now, so I guess I'll comment on it. Is guys playing basketball, and somebody stepped out of bounds, and somebody else says, no, you didn't. I didn't step out of bounds. And the other one said, yeah, you did. You stepped out of bounds. Wallahi, akhi, I did not step out of bounds. The other guy's like, oh my God, you're such a munafiq. You swore by Allah, but you stepped out of bounds. I saw you. And they're like bringing religious theology into the basketball court. Try not to swear by Allah when you're playing basketball. Okay, it's worth the turnover to not bring Allah into this conversation. Okay, wallahi this or wallahi that. Just take it easy. When tempers get heated, people start using those words, and then because it's not casual. It's a tense moment. And you're trying to validate your point to the other, don't bring Allah into those kinds of conversations. Allah Azza wa Jall's name is sacred, and it should be used in higher places. So, لا يؤاخذكم الله باللغو في أيمانكم. Allah will not grab you over just the casual oaths that you took, any of the oaths that you may have taken casually. But then, ولكن يؤاخذكم بما كسبت قلوبكم. But He will grab you, He will seize you for what your hearts earned. The expression, what the hearts earned, the implication is you meant it, تعمدا. كنت متعمدا في القسم. You meant it through and through. You know what you said. But then you can come to the faqih, or you can come to the imam and say, yeah, I did say, I swear, I don't want to see her face again, but I didn't mean it. I mean, you could tell the imam sahib you didn't mean it. You could tell your wife you didn't mean it. Because Allah will not look at your tongue in that case. Judgment day, Allah will look at your heart. وَلَكِنْ يُؤَاخِذُكُمْ بِمَا كَسَبَتْ قُلُوبُكُمْ. So one has to really deeply introspect and say, did I mean it when I said it? Because you can get away with saying anything, and at the end of it all, what could you just say? I didn't mean it. Oh, no, I wasn't serious. I was just saying that. You could sell that to anybody, but you can't sell it to Allah, because He will not record what your tongue did, He will record what your heart meant. وَلَكِنْ يُؤَاخِذُكُمْ بِمَا كَسَبَتْ قُلُوبُكُمْ وَاللَّهُ غَفُورٌ. And Allah is extremely forgiving. Halimun. Halim is forbearing. Someone who understands your position and then shows you mercy and love. This is Halim. So Allah Azza wa Jal puts these two ayat about oaths and taking them seriously and not using them casually. If you do take it seriously. The only time you should break it is when breaking it will do more good. What are the three kinds of good? أَن تَبَرُّوا وَتَتَّقُوا وَتُصْلِحُوا بَيْنَ النَّاسِ. Those are the three scenarios of good that Allah mentioned. Then don't use oaths casually. And right after these ayat, which I'm not going to discuss today, are the ayat of divorce. The next ayat are the ayat of divorce. Is there a connection between people making oaths casually and divorce? SubhanAllah. It's a pretty serious connection. Look at the transition. First there were ayat about marriage, who you should and shouldn't marry, some ethics of marriage itself, then seriousness of promises. And one of the most serious promises we've ever taken in our life is a nikah. And then the people that end up breaking their nikah by means of talaq, or by means of an invalid kind of qasam. So Allah Azza wa Jal then reveals ethics of how to properly engage in divorce. The only comment I'll make, because we're going to look at it from a sociological, rather than a legal point of view, the ayat. The legal point of view is for the ulama of Sharia. But we'll look at it from a sociological point of view. Divorce in Islam, if properly abided by, is actually not an ugly thing. Of the halal things, it is the most detested to Allah, but it is in the end still halal. It's not haram. Which actually, and Allah Azza wa Jal in these ayat has actually made a means by which divorce can be very civil, it can be very comfortable, it can be at the least amount of pain possible. Now who makes divorce ugly? We do. And what makes divorce ugly is the lack of taqwa. Is a lack of recognition that the one who brought these two people together is Allah Azza wa Jal. He makes the pairs. And the one who has given guidelines for them to be separated also come from Allah Azza wa Jal. The party in charge of this relationship is Allah. When people forget that, the relationship, the way it comes together is bad, and the way it breaks up is bad. I'm not an advocate for divorce. But if divorce is a necessity, then these guidelines have to be followed. And if they're followed, then you have civil divorce. You have a mature divorce. You don't have a divorce where two parties hate each other. That one says the other's name and they spit and they say, I don't want to see his face again, or this or that or the other. Sometimes people get divorced because they're just not working out. There's just two different personalities. It doesn't that one person is religious and the other one's not religious and that's why they got divorced. No, divorce happens for incompatibility also. It even happened among the Sahaba, radiyallahu anhu ajma'in. Both the husband and the wife, Sahabis. Both in the highest level of Iman. We rank them far above we would rank anybody else, but they got divorced. So we have those situations, and that's actually even the divorce of Zayd radiallahu anhu is mentioned specifically in Surah Al-Ahzab, right? But the last bit I'll leave you with, because in our series of this will come way later. Way later. But pretty much every great mufassir who's written about these ayat of oaths has done istidlal, has brought the ayah from Surah An-Nur. So there's an ayah in Surah An-Nur that has to do with oaths. And this, if you really want to understand these ayat, you have to understand the case study. Because this is theory. This is the theory of oaths. But what's the case study? The case study is the study of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala anhu, which is mentioned in Surah An-Nur. The ayah that begins, وَلَا يَأْتَلِ أُولُو الْفَضْلِ مِنْكُمْ. Right? So in the case of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu, a very fascinating thing happens. It'll take about 7 minutes, I promise, and I'm done. There's a very incredible incident in the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ. But some of you sitting here are fathers. You have daughters. I have daughters. Many of you are husbands. Many of you have sisters. We know how we feel about the women in our family and how protective we are. And on top of that, the person that we're talking about now, Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, is not just Abu Bakr's daughter radiallahu anhuma. She's not just his daughter. She's also the dignity of Islam itself. She's the Ummul Mu'mineen. She's the mother of the believers. And when a munafiq starts a scandal against her, accuses her of wrongdoing, and Mistah, one of the people that Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was funding financially, was helping him out, doing sadaqah for him, got involved in that scandal and accused her too. He got involved. Now somebody says something about my wife, about my daughter, about my mother, about my sister, I'm ready to kill him. I don't know if it's the Afghani in me or what. I think it's the Muslim in us. We cannot stand the indignation of our women. We consider their dignity our dignity. We protect their dignity with our life. So when somebody says those kinds of things about not just his daughter, but the Ummul Mu'mineen, she's his daughter and his mother at the same time, you have to understand this. She's his daughter in reality, and in Iman, in the reality of Iman, she's Ummul Mu'mineen. So no one is more beloved to him than Rasulullah ﷺ. And when Rasul's wife is being accused, then the pain that Rasul ﷺ suffers, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq suffers. So Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, which the size of this man's heart, unimaginable, his anger is so extreme. What's the anger come out to be? Okay, I'm not going to give him sadaqah anymore. The size of his heart, that his anger manifested in, I will not give him sadaqah. I will cut off the allowance that I used to give Mistah. I will not give him. I can't get myself to give him anymore. I'm not going to yell at him. I'm not going to beat him up. I'm not going to kill him. I'm not going to fight with him. I'm not going to say a word to him. I'm just not going to give him anymore. Is the iman of sabr Abu Bakr Siddiq has, radiallahu anhu. There's a reason we put his iman on the one hand and the iman of the ummah on the other hand. We wouldn't have the kind of emotional control that Abu Bakr Siddiq has, radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Allah reveals the ayah and basically offers, Abu Bakr Siddiq had taken an oath not to give anymore. Allah gave him the incentive to break the oath. And the incentive to break the oath is one of the most beautiful incentives in the entire Quran. Allah says to him, أَلَا تُحِبُّونَ أَنْ يَغْفِرَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ? Wouldn't you love that Allah would forgive you? Break the oath and forgive Mistah. You forgive him. Why should I forgive him? All the wrong he's done. What, give me one thing that's worth forgiving him? Allah says, wouldn't you love that Allah would guarantee you forgiving you? So if you've taken an oath and you're angry at someone, and you refuse to forgive them, then take the incentive from Allah. You forgive them and Allah is guaranteeing you what? He'll forgive you. Now you have to weigh, is your anger heavier or your desire to be forgiven by Allah heavier, and you pick. Allah didn't say you have to pick one. You are forced to pick forgiveness, but Allah said, okay, you weigh it yourself. You decide. أَلَا تُحِبُّونَ أَنْ يَغْفِرَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ. Even فَلْيَعْفُوا وَلْيَصْفَحُوا. It could have, all of that could have been second person, and it could have been direct amr. فَلْيَعْفُوا, the lam is actually أقل درجة من الأمر. It's less. He should forgive. He should forgive. As opposed to forgive. If the ayah said فَعْفُوا وَاصْفَحُوا, then he has to forgive. But he says فَلْيَعْفُوا, he should forgive. It's probably a good idea he should forgive. And then at the end he gives him an incentive too, Allah will forgive you. So, and that's the first, by the way, of the three kinds of breaking the oath we talked about, the first of them was doing good to people. And tabarru. That's the hardest one. Because to break the oath of anger, you have to get over your anger against someone and say they don't deserve it, but you still break it, and you still do good towards them. That means the only incentive you have in your heart is the pleasure of Allah Azza wa Jal. May Allah give us the ability to break the oaths that we have taken mistakenly. May Allah keep us from those who do not make oaths in an immature fashion and control our tongues. Barakallahu li wa lakum fil Qur'an al-Hakim. ونفعني وإياكم بالآيات والذكر الحكيم.